So there was a department maybe of a dozen people, all male, and I got the drawing and I pasted it on the wall, but what it had a sign with a big black rim, secret, observe secrecy requirements. But I ignored that because I'd seen them all the time. But I wasn't supposed to see it. But who in the hell cares about dimensions of an engine? You know, it's stupid. But there were a couple of guys, and they were mad as a hornet. You know, they had never seen a secret drawing in their lives. And here they were. He was this goddamn foreigner, probably the enemy, looking at secret drawings. So within a day, well, I think, yeah, the next day, I arrived in the afternoon in that department. And the next day, these guys started whispering behind my back, and I could hardly understand them. And then suddenly, a guy walks in uniform, black uniform, SS, you know, with the skull and bones and everything else. And very tall guy. He was in charge of all the, what here would be called commissionaires, but there it would be called guards or whatever. And he talked to the supervisor, who was like in a classroom, was sitting on a dais or something. And then they pointed at me. And then the next thing that happened, they walked up to the drawing and took the drawing off the wall. So I asked for a phone and I dialed Zoller, you know. I said, they took my drawing away, I can't do any work. And he said, don't worry about it. I said, okay. An hour later I got arrested by the same guy. And they put me in a concrete bunker, you might call it, which was underneath the main entrance. So you can imagine, concrete and noisy. All the traffic going back and forth, trucks and what have you. And I was dressed like, you know, no, and it was winter. It was around Christmas, just before Christmas. But I was shivering anyway. I was cold. And maybe I was shivering because I was scared too. The only bench they had was with wooden slats, nothing to wrap around. And I spent from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. In the meantime, they'd taken, when I got arrested, I was in the guardhouse, and the guys sat there laughing their heads off, you know, they're trying to scare me, and they sort of played with pistols. And one guy says, well, he said, give me all your stuff, and I had a rosary in my pocket. I remember I got a rosary just before I left Holland. An aunt or mom had given it to me. So they laughed, you know, and so they dumped it all in an envelope and put it away. So this one guy with a big smirk on his face, he said, he sort of played with his pistol. He said, tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, we'll put you up against the wall. You know, and I didn't like that. And that's the way it works. The system works that way, you know, and we knew damn well. And so anyway, what happened? At 4 o'clock, a guy comes in, one of the guards, and took me out, gave me all my possessions back. I said, what's happening? He said, you're out, and don't come back. And so then they said, you can go back to the hotel. So I went back to the hotel, and there I met Zoller. I said, what happened? And then he found out that I'd been arrested. Boy, was he mad. And he said they came in and tried to arrest him. And he said, what's the charge? You know, and they said espionage. And he said, well, you try to arrest me and I get the boss, because he knew the top dog personally, you know, in this lab. So anyway, they never arrested him. And they just had a big mouth, you know. When you have a big mouth, nothing happens to you. So he next morning, he went he was raving mad, and he told them, you know. And, so I wasn't able to do anything, which was of course perfect outcome for me. But I had to wait till he went back to Leipzig, because we were assigned for a week. So when we got back to Leipzig, you know, everything was normal again, sort of.
Okay, so that's the Dessau factory for Junkers and Dessau, and you were saying that they were testing the UMO turbine?
No, the turbine was in Köthen.
Oh, it was in Köthen.
Yeah, Köthen is spelled K-O-umlaut-T-H-E-N.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a little fiefdom in the Middle Ages or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, even Johann Sebastian Bach played the organ there. And they had a plant where they assembled jet engines and tested them.
Right.
The normal endurance of the engine was 4 hours. Then they had to take it apart to put a new turbine wheel in. Why? Because the scoops, and there were 100 blades,
Mm-hmm.
they stretched too much, and then they would interfere with the housing. The reason they stretched because the Germans didn't have good materials. The only place where they could get chromium was Turkey.
Right.
And I don't know about tungsten or any of the other.
I think nowadays they're mostly using nickel, right?
Well,
nickel blades in the hot end.
Access to nickel too, but all in limited quantities. So they were the first ones. They do it now quite often in jets, and they had made hollow blades. You can just imagine the manufacturing problem of making hollow blades, but they did it.
Mm-hmm.
But if one stretched too much, you know, even the evenness of the material wasn't there. So one of the engine blew up, and that's always happened in the hottest part, you know. So one blade made a big arch. There was a lot of blades were flying all over the place. It killed 2 mechanics, and one of the blades went right through the department where I was, which was a small cubbyhole, maybe a little bit bigger than our big living room. And the drafting board was almost vertical, and the thing went through a steel door right next to me, where my board was, but I wasn't standing. It would have gone right through me. And then it went across the small corridor, it went through a wooden door, and that's where it stopped. That's where they found the blade.
How big's the blade?
Huh?
How big's the blade?
Yeah. I came back from my walk. I always walked around to see what was going on, and I'd heard the explosion, but I didn't know what had happened.
Right.
Until I got back to the department, then they knew. You know, because the other guys, they were there all the time.
So going for a walk is healthy?
It's very healthy.
No, but that's sort of a James Bond thing. You disappear, something blows up, you come back. They
were all excited when I came back. They said, "Boy, are you lucky?" And I just looked around. I said, "What's new?" And I said, "I heard some bang outside." And they said, "That was it. You would have been killed." Why? I mean, the bang was way out in the middle of the plant.
Yeah.
Basically, they said the turbine blew up, and they blow up all the time. They said.
But they didn't put any roofs on the test cells.
It was all wide in the open. They were just on stands.
On test stands.
Yeah, test stand open.
So if they blew up, they blew up.
They blew up, and if you were in line with the
turbine.
Yeah, it's actually you don't want to be in line with propellers either in an airplane or anywhere.
No, and it's the same thing I keep thinking when I'm sitting next to the jet engine, especially a DC-9 or something, that you're next to the hot end, and it's only a few pieces of thin aluminum that are between you and those hot blades. So if one lets go at 60,000 RPM, you're pretty well toast, right?
Yeah. So.
Didn't they have one recently that blew up, like a jet engine that just...
It was, but the shroud contained it.
They learned to build a sort of a shroud that would catch it.
I think they're making a lot of the shrouds out of titanium now.
That'd be tough enough, I guess.
you know, they were learning. I mean, they were learning different things from the guys in England. You know, they built a different type of. This was an inline jet engine, and the one in England was sort of a radial type of thing.
What do you mean, that the hot end was inside the
No,
compression?
The English engine, when you looked inside view, was large diameter, and then it tapered and had a fairly small diameter pipe. But the German one was elongated
Mm-hmm.
and more compact, and it had various stages.
Right.
So it.
I guess now they're large diameter, they call a high bypass, because there's a
Yes,
lot.
because there's not only a compressor now, but now they have a bypass fan, turbo fan they call it, and it just gets more volume of air, because the whole idea is they can get the fuel to it, but they can't get enough air, especially at high altitude, and now they fly at 40,000 even with little jets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it pays. Also, the other reason was that they wanted to reduce the noise.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, if you have larger volume at lower speed.
And the other thing that happened in the beginning, when Rolls-Royce came out with the first one, I don't know what it was called anymore. They had fiberglass blades, and they just blew up the fatigue. And they tried everything, and the engines were under warranty. So after every 90 hours, they replaced the whole turbofan at the car, paid for by Rolls-Royce.
Yeah.
So it took them a long while to get them reliable enough to last the normal 6,000 hours overhaul time.
Right.
Because 6,000 hours is fantastic. You know, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But the Germans could only fly the damn plane for 4 hours.
So the place in Dessau was a design office then?
There were many places. There was manufacturing, and there was prototyping, but Automatenwerken, which were on the other side of the street, was the experimental department.
Okay, so the jet engines, but they were working with jet engines at that place that you were at then? It's just the manufacturing.
The one that blew up in Köthen, they were being assembled.
Yeah.
In Dessau, I walked around quite a bit at noontime, especially when people had lunch and nobody was on the job. I went into what turned out to be departments I wasn't supposed to be. And I saw all these weird pieces of metal, and I didn't know what it was. And so I asked, and they said those are the turbines. And I still thought of turbines as compressors, which...
Like turbocharger.
Yeah, that they were probably to soup up the engines. No. They said these were jet engines. Don't forget, we didn't know anything about...
They should have been shot for that one.
Yeah, I know. Well, I should have been shot many a time.
No, but for the people yapping with you, come on, loose lips sing ships, right?
Yeah, I know. I bought a book later on. Bought a book about turbines, gas turbines, and so on.
Right.
And it was a very nice book, published by Springer. I don't know the title anymore. And I was reading it when there were air warnings. We had to go in the shelter, and the lights were on usually, unless a bomb hit power line somewhere. Then it got pitch dark. Well, one time it got pitch dark, so I couldn't read the book. So I put it on top of a filing cabinet. You know, we were in the basement of what was called the German Book Exchange. It was a very large building. The main printing of anything was done in Leipzig anyway,
right.
In Germany. So when the lights went back on, couldn't find the book. And I was with my French friend René Marchand, and René said, "Where's your book?" I said, "I don't know, but I suspect my boss stole it." And he was the kind of guy that didn't want me to know anything. You know, he felt that foreigner reading about a German book about turbines, they couldn't even understand why they would publish a book like that. But people have to learn and have to know. So.
Well, but I
I
think
was-
that's what you said before, is that they banned all sorts of things, books by Jews, books by this, books by that, but nothing technical. They practically had an open,
Almost
Open
yeah.
attitude.
Scientific literature especially was available. I bought a whole bunch of books before I went home on hormones. The hormones were never heard of, but they were doing research on hormones, and so on. I thought in my innocence that our house doctor would probably be interested, so I got some of the latest literature in
right?
German on hormone research and so on, and saying that they were sort of dangerous if you
Screwed around with them.
yeah, if you use them too often or in too large a quantity or whatever. They did find that out. So, but in Köthen, I was there for a week. The funny part in Dessau was I was in a hotel called the Golden Beutel, they called it. It was a sort of little bag with money that people had. And but the funniest part there was they had the whole system in the whole city to make artificial fog. So they were like oil drums, and they had a very thin pipe sticking out and a shield and a nozzle, and somebody would go around town, or several people, and they would open up the valve, and then this fine spray would come out of it, and it would create fog.
So made it harder to bomb, or what?
Without radar, you wouldn't be able to see the city or the plant.
And they could
Just
create
one
ground
big-
fog, really?
They made artificial fog. So, but at the same time, and the air warning went on and the fog was being produced, you know, in case the planes would come to Dessau,
Right.
because they never knew where the planes were going to go. The guy down at the desk calls my room, and he said, and the Germans say please after everything, you know, they're very polite. So he said, Alarm bitte, which means air warning please,
Yeah, right,
which simply meant you had to run downstairs and go to the basement.
right.
So, but that was the funniest thing, because you expected to be woken up, but this was pitch dark, you know.
Right.
Alarm bitte. You know, the old.
So they phoned every room then.
They found everything.
Yeah. Funny.
It was funny, you know. They were, but the Nazis were so prevalent there that the Dutchmen that I spoke to that worked there, if they were in, say, in a main street on the sidewalk, they would have a habit of turning around, turn their backs to these marching Nazis. They were marching every spare time they had, every moment. And the guys would just pretend to look at the shop windows. But some guys would break rank and really beat them up
Right.
to make them face, and preferably bring the Nazis to look. Well, you try to get the Dutchman. I go to church now, and sometimes they have sort of a
Laying
blessing where
on of
somebody
hands.
is honored, or somebody is whatever, and you have to hold your hand like that. I can't do it. I will never ever do that.
You just
Well,
say,
it's funny because I can't do it either.
yeah, it's
I
rotator
see
cuff.
that, I see that and I say no.
People don't
sorry,
realize the importance of
don't
those
want to do
symbols.
that.
What, and you don't like the North Korean goose stepping either? Have you seen that
Well,
in
that was, but
North
goose stepping came from the Germans, and the Russians copied it, and then Korea.
North Korean?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. But when I see that, it's just hilarious that these are the only people getting food in North Korea are the
Try it, and, you know, I haven't tried it, but I'm sure it's a very heavy exercise, especially with heavy boots.
no, but it's a hip flexor exercise. It's not a good balanced exercise.
But it's really they were really scared in Dessau, but they had no choice as to
Michelle must be running.
where
When
they
she comes
worked.
back, I would like you to tell her, of course, dear, I will move you without any questions asked.